Hello and welcome back to my office to all the Templars. It's been a funny old last few weeks. We've had a number of strange things happening. I've had a contact from a local television company that's making a series of programmes about people doing paintings, watercolours no less, all around Devon. So that could be quite interesting if they want to proceed with that. Of course, as usual, film and TV programmes have come to nothing. I had 2 approaches last year, 3 approaches the year before, and nothing happened with any of them, which is fairly typical in my experience, but irritating nonetheless. What is good news is that I did finally manage to finish Blackjack 6. The editor was enormously pleased with it, very, very happy indeed. And not only did she like it and agree to pay some money, which is always nice, she also decided she wanted to commission 2 more books in that series, which is also nice. It's just really irritating that the amount of money is roughly £1,000 more than I was paid for my first books back in 1994. Not a huge amount of money. Let's just say it doesn't even get into 2 figures for the 2 books. So that's good and less good. But what is really pleasing is that I have managed at last to finish this manuscript, which is 550 pages of very detailed writing. And it's one of those books where I've got so close to it now that I can't really tell how good it is. And so this time, for the first time, I've hired 2 non-professional readers to just look through it and see if they enjoy it and what they can recommend in terms of any amendments, mostly grammatical amendments, because these 2 are my brothers and they will take enormous delight in pulling apart any sentences which they think are slightly silly or dodgy, or basically that they can take the mickey out of because they like taking the mickey because their brother is called Mickey to them. I hate being called Mickey, but they do it all the time. So I'm very pleased that that's finished, and I'm looking forward to their comments so that as soon as their comments come back I'll be able to waft it off to the agent and we'll see if we can get it anywhere. It was a very hard edit, that one, because originally I wrote it as 120,000 words and it was all first person, so it was me talking as a detective in Shanghai, looking at Shanghai through my eyes, looking at the people through my eyes, explaining the situation in Shanghai in the 1920s. My agent wasn't happy with that. She didn't think it worked in the same way as, for example, the Blackjack Bloody Mary Tudor series works, looking at things through his point of view. And I can see that because Blackjack is very much a fool. He's very bumptious, he's overconvinced about his appeal to women, he's very overconvinced about his intelligence. He's a bit of a twerp, and looking at the world through his eyes, seeing how other people respond to him, is part of the joy of the books. This is very different because it's a much more hard-bitten type of story. It's not as jokey, it's not as light-hearted, it's a much more serious story. So I think having the perspective of the policeman alone doesn't work as well. So I've changed it so it's more like the Templar series. So you look at things from the point of view of all of the suspects as well as the policeman, and you're getting inside each of their heads and getting a view on their motivations and how they think other people are motivated and so on. So I think it works very well now, but it has been a very long process. I first wrote this book, I think, 3 years ago. I spent a lot of time working on it, editing it, tightening it, and then last year, after my brother died, I really decided that I needed to get this much, much stronger. and sat down and really pulled it apart. And this year, most of the time has been spent just dissecting it and rewriting. So it grew like Topsy when I changed it into no longer being first person. When it went third person, all of a sudden it went from 120,000 words to 160,000, which was too much. And then I edited it quite hard and I managed to pull it back to 155,000. That was nothing like enough. So I went through it again this year and I've pulled it right back to 135,000. 135,000, I can live with that, that's bearable. If I could lose another 5,000 words, I would, but I'm not going to fight too hard. If an editor thinks it's a bit too long, that's fine. She can pull it apart herself and tell me where she thinks things can be tightened and so on with the copy editor. So, for now, if my two brothers are happy with it, it'll go off and we'll see if we can get that to a major publisher. Apart from that, there really hasn't been anything much going on in my life. I've mentioned the paintings programme. I've really spent most of my time, apart from editing, in thinking about other things. So I've set up this ridiculous little pen pals club. I was contacted by a fan of the YouTube channel a little while ago, and he said, you really ought to think about helping people communicate with pens and paper. And I said, well, yeah, but it's a bit difficult, because the main issue I could foresee is what has happened, which is many of the people who get involved first of all want to speak to the person who initially created this idea. They see me as being the creator of the idea, so they all write to me. So we've got about 40 odd members now, and I am currently 16 letters behind on my replies. But it takes time, because you've got to read someone's letter and then respond to it, and writing the letter itself in response is going to take 15 minutes to half an hour, and then you've got to read it in the first place. So it takes about 45 minutes to respond to each of these letters, which is a fair chunk of time out of my day. Hey ho, 16 letters, that's a minimum of 8 hours work. So that's pretty much a day. And I haven't got time for that, because I have to crack on. I've got to edit The Sniper. I've got to edit 2 books about an author. I've got to edit another book, which is probably a rewrite rather than an edit, which is going to be all about a police officer in Plymouth. I've also got another book I want to write, which is very much a modern spy story, a bit of a follow-up to Act of Vengeance. So I've got all of these different things which are bubbling around in the back of my head. Each of them needs a lot of time spent on it. I think what I'm probably going to do, because I've had enough of edits right now, I think I'm probably going to write a new book. It will probably be a police procedural based in Plymouth, and it'll probably incorporate a number of the ideas I've had with other books. Soon as that's done, I'm going to go back to edit The Sniper, and I'm going to take a view on The Sniper as to whether or not it's actually usable as a modern book. I don't think it is. I think it's a book which I wrote at the back end of the Northern Ireland Troubles, and it was very much of its period. So it may not work as a modern day book. I may put that out myself on the internet and just see what people think of it. It's a fun book anyway. It was the very first thing I ever wrote. It's something I was very proud of at the time. And if the IRA hadn't signed their ceasefire, it was going to be taken on by Bantam Press. So I'd like to write that, get it finished and get it out there if possible. But that really is about it. What else am I up to? Well, I'm trying to paint a bit more. I'm failing abjectly. And I'm spending this weekend, most of my weekend, trying to cut back a hedge. Doesn't sound like much, but that hedge is about 150 yards long. And it has to be done because very soon that's actually bounding a small bit of pasture land I've got, which has got completely overgrown. So what I'm planning to do is, a local farmer has a few pigs, and he's going to leave the pigs in there, and hopefully they'll dig over all of the soil, they'll eat all the roots, and in a few months' time we'll have a very muddy but weed-free field, and then we can spread some grass and have it used as pasture, or just leave the pigs in there for a bit longer and get the whole place really cleaned out. And so it's going to take a fair amount of time to do that hedge because it is very long. Hey ho, I've got to just have another slurp of coffee. My mouth is very dry. That is one other thing I should just mention. Thursday last week, my wife and I went in and had our COVID vaccinations, the first jabs, and it was really remarkably easy. We had fairly heavy cold flu symptoms for 24 hours, which is good. I spoke to a nurse afterwards, and she said that basically that's proof that the vaccine is working. It's got your immune systems to respond with symptoms to the potential infection of the virus, and so the fact you get aching head, aching joints, all that sort of thing is a really good sign, because it means the vaccine has kicked in and is working. So I am one of those people that has now been vaccinated. Hopefully that means that we're starting to see the end of this horrible ruddy virus and the rest of the world can start to get back to normal. Hopefully Europe will start losing their terror of vaccines and will start vaccinating people, and that means Europe can open up again, which would be nice. And apart from that, I don't think there's too much to say. I am currently really enjoying myself with a new pen. Delightful chap called Mitchell sent me this from America. It is a Schaefer, and the great thing about it is it's one of the snorkel Schaefers. So as you unscrew the back, a little snorkel comes out through the top, and you stick that into your pot of ink, pull the back down, push the back up, and it sucks up ink. And it's absolutely wonderful. It's a superb writer. I just love that mechanism, especially since it's the spitting image of a pen, the last fountain pen in fact that my father ever bought and used, this Schaefer. He had it when he worked at the Legal and General. He was data processing manager and assistant general manager of the Legal and General at Kingswood, and he had one of these pens, and I can still remember him using it regularly in the evenings. And it's an absolute delight to use. I'm really, really over the moon with it. It's wonderful. And so now I'm going to fill it up with some ink, and I'm going to go away and start writing up notes for my next book. Isn't that exciting? It's always good to start on a new book, I find. It's the time that is fun, because you're playing with ideas, you're chewing things over. When you sit down at the desk and start typing them up, that's rather more like hard labour. So I'm now on holiday with thinking up a new book. What fun. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks ever so much for your patronage. It does make a huge difference. And keep safe, keep fit, and I'll speak to you very soon. Cheers, take care.